So let's quickly introduce. We'll start here and work right down so everyone get to know you, then we'll get right into it.
Awesome. Brian Gubernick from Scottsdale, Arizona. My team is also in Oregon, Nevada, Michigan. I've been in the expansion world a little while. Oh, I should also say, because I'm super passionate about the topic around profit, we run at about a 26% margin, 27. I think with Command, well, Jason Abrams in the background there. I think with Command, though, I was running some numbers this morning, Josh. I think we'll just making some changes and incorporating Command. I expect a 6 or 7% bump.
Nice. I didn't know you were saying that, so thank you.
Yeah, when you factor in the various tools that I can remove, I think I'll bump up. Now, just to frame that a little bit better, I'm not actively selling, but I'm deep in my models and systems, but I'm not in production. So I think it's important I shared that with the heavy emphasis this year, making certain everybody's making a couple bucks.
Awesome.
I'm Aaron Armstrong from Nashville, Tennessee. Been with Keller Williams since 2005. And I'm excited to be up here today talking about lead generation and tech.
So I am Nick Waldner. I'm coming from Maryland, and thank you. So in the last 5 years, we've gone from selling about 40 homes to selling just over 400. And I was with another company for about 12 years prior to that. So plugging into the systems and really understanding that all the models are there is what changed my business and has helped me grow.
I'm Karina Loken. I'm with the Loken Group in Houston, Texas, and KW Platinum. We've got a great group here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's get right into it. So we'll start here. How do you think about the life cycle of a lead, and what are some tricks or hints or some takeaways that you would suggest if I was going to write down one thing to go back and implement in my business so I can have a better visibility or more just best practices? What would be your one takeaway there on the life cycle?
I think that I can get technical with this response, but the thing that came to mind when I was thinking around this answer, as many of you have been out to Austin, I had the opportunity to talk around with the TLs and the OPs around Command. And I had conducted a number of different interviews in preparation for that class that we ran, Josh. And we talked around, and I had interviewed a handful of people, and one specific person, Anna Kalinsky. If you're here, Anna, I'm using your answer here because I love it. I asked Anna around consumer experience and describe for me what consumer experience means. And her answer was perfect. What I discovered was that most of us think, or have been trained to think, about the sales experience, which is lead comes in to closing. That's the sales experience. But consumer experience, which is how I've had to kind of retool my thinking, is about from the time you and I first interact, Josh, through the life with my team, right? So I think one tip or trick around this would be to start looking at those leads beyond just the transaction, but how are they interacting with your brand? How are they interacting with the marketing, the value that you're providing, the neighborhoods that you're providing? What does that experience really look like? How do we give them this unique sales experience or unique consumer experience that's much different than how I ran the sales experience for years prior, which was really just a function of the MLS portal, right? Like, you're going to look at properties. When you like a property, let me know. It's changed. So life cycle of the lead, I think, again, I could get more technical on this, but I think we've got to start thinking more around their consumer experience from the time they enter our world indefinitely.
So if I were to rephrase that in my mind, what you're saying is make sure we're looking at all the touch points that consumer goes through the journey, whether it be a buyer or seller, and identify what's adding value, where are we actually differentiating from everyone else, and really examine and investigate what that consumer experience is across that. And you think that's the one takeaway? I
love that. The journey is just so different these days.
So Aaron, I'm going to come to you then. So before that, you got to get leads in order to what's the one thing, what's the best practice, or in your mind, what's one kind of, the key things we can do around getting new leads and converting new leads so they get into our funnel?
Yeah, that's a great, and I love what Brian said, because really it is all about what we can provide to the consumer. If we can be providing the highest level of value, then they're going to want to work with us. So around generating leads, a big percentage of our business comes from our past clients in sphere of influence. So we're real involved with how can we stay in front of those people and provide that value. And one of the great things that you guys have given us with Command is an easier way to do that. We no longer have to have a bunch of different systems. We can use things like designs to be able to create great pieces that allow us to be able to stay in constant contact.
So how do you do that? Like, how do you actually stay in front of your clients and to help so that they're more likely to suggest you amongst their spheres?
Yeah, I think it's a contact sport, right? The more that we can be in conversation with them on an ongoing basis, then the better chance we have of getting referrals. So we do things like quarterly client events, happy hours. We do things like a monthly email newsletter. I shoot a market update video every month where we talk about what's changed in the previous month and what are the stats that we're seeing, and we send that out. We're constantly trying to provide value and interpret the local market for them so that they're better able to know when it might be the right time to buy or sell.
So if I'm in the audience right now, I'm like, okay, what's the one thing that's worked for you that I could go back and implement so that I'd be more likely to generate more business from my current and past clients? What would it be?
For us, I think it would be the client events that we're doing.
Client events? And those don't have to be like grandiose ballroom banquet stuff. These can be literally, in fact, I think, Karina, I'll come to you. You guys had one recently that was awesome. And talk through that. Was it a zoo? Was that right?
Yes, we do. We do a zoo event. It's been growing. It started actually as us taking our grill from our house in the back of somebody's borrowed pickup truck to the park, and we've graduated from there, but it doesn't have to be something really big, right? Like, we even got a really great response to the park, right? And we made somebody dress up in like an Easter Bunny costume. We had a great time. But yeah, we've graduated now to our local Houston Zoo is absolutely one of the coolest places in Houston if you ever get a chance to visit. And we're able to actually reserve a section of the zoo, and they have a catering service and the whole 9 yards. And it's grown so much over the years, and it's gotten traction from doing it repeatedly that people look so forward to it. Everybody that attends gets a ticket to be at the zoo all day. And this year we had so many folks that were attending that we actually were able to do a whole zoo takeover on Friday night. So we had the parking lot to ourselves, we had the zoo to ourselves.
So from your own grill, just hanging out, to you were the zoo. That's pretty cool.
It was really neat.
I'm going to stay with you for 1 second. Because you guys, you have a massive real estate business that does thousands of deals. How do you manage that? How do you audit that? How do you look at your sales pipeline in a way? And what would be your one tip of advice? So if I'm doing 10 deals, 50 deals, 100 deals, and I'm aspiring to get to the multi-thousand deals like in your case, what's the one thing, if you could go back in time and say, I'm going to implement this now and early so that as my business scales, I don't have that learning pain that maybe you guys went through. Like, what would be your one tip advice there?
Honestly, as simple as it sounds, putting your contacts into your CRM.
Back to the basics.
Really, honestly.
I love it.
Fast forward a year or two into the business, when you sit back and go, oh, crap, that was on like mine were on sticky notes on the car seat, right? Like under with the French fries. And, that should have been in there, because then how do you consistently stay in touch with people if you don't have that information in there? You can't automate the systems, whatever system you're using. And as simple as it sounds, make sure that your contacts are actually in the system so it can do the job for you.
Now, Nick, how do you and your team, how do you guys look at your sales pipeline, and what are some of the best practices that you've implemented to get scale?
So I think the first thing that really opened our eyes up is the length of time somebody's in our system from the time they come in as a brand new lead to the time they actually close. And what we found is it's about 19 months. So 19 months, when I first started in real estate, if you didn't want to buy or sell a house in the next 90 days, I pretty much completely forgot about you and went on to the next. So now,
really quick on that, so I think 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, so only kind of my timing, KWI Research went out and we did our own research where we reached out to hundreds of agents and just cataloged the response times. And it was interesting, I think only 20% of the time we even got a call back.
Wow.
And so I think to that point is that there is an opportunity just in our making sure we actually are responding, but also in that lag time, because as we know, 80% of the business awarded to an agent is who the client talks to first.
Yeah.
And so that speed to lead is really important, I think, what you're alluding to there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, though.
No, not at all. So I think the speed to lead is the beginning, but that's where a lot of us stop. We think, okay, we jumped on it within the first 30 seconds or 2 minutes, but it's what about the 10th phone call, the 20th phone call, the 50th phone call, that we're staying on top of them after those 19 months before we actually get a closing. And that's a whole range of, we have people that, will call in and we settle in 30 days, and we have people that, we reach out to and connect with and we settle in 527 days.
So what does that look like? So if I were to map out like a calendar, in my mind, I'm imagining like a 19-month calendar. Do you like ramp up interactions? Are you like kind of starting like a monthly kind of call and then like maybe a soft email, and then you're ramping up to 12 months? Is it the same every month? Like, what does that kind of plan look for you without getting,
So I think that the simplest thing is everybody's looking for this bot to come in and do everything for them. And the simple conversation is you pick up the phone, you have a conversation, and you understand their needs. Jenny's graduating from high school next May. Well, no matter how much of a salesperson you may be, you're not going to convince them to sell before next May. So you set that up on a timeline of touching base with them every month until it gets to be 6 months out. Then it may be over 2 weeks, and then it might be.
So what I hear you saying there, which is really interesting, because we're going to talk about this a bit later, is that you guys have looked at and you found that inside of your business, about that 19-month journey is what it looks like. And so you then cultivate one-to-one strategies that says, if you all four in my database and you all came at the same time, I'm not going to speak to you guys all the same way, because you have a son that's graduating next year, you're a first-time buyer, you're retiring, and so I'm going to go back and say that with love, and you're going to map out, okay, now that I know 19 months is the journey, I need to come up with a communication plan that's effective based off your individualized needs.
Exactly.
And how do you do that? How do you implement that? Is that just...
So it's a mindset change. All of a sudden, we're trying to, like a lead comes in and we want to speed the lead, jump on it right away. And every once in a while, you will have that immediate need. I want to buy or sell a house, great. But for the most part, you're looking to have a good conversation. You're looking to connect with somebody. You're not going to get on the phone and sell them every single time you connect with them. You're better off having a good conversation, asking good questions, and understanding their needs so that you can start developing your plan of what makes sense for them. And that's the mindset change that really has shifted, that phone call is not about getting that sale. It's about understanding the client so that you can make a plan for the sale.
And just to piggyback on that, and I love that, Nick, I think when you go home, whether you're a solo agent or you're a massive team, you need to have some set of laws around how you're going to handle your leads in your pipeline. Like, you need to go home and define, okay, if someone indicates to me they're selling in 12 months, what do I do? What does my team do? Like for us, someone says, and I know you guys do the same, Karina, you do the same, someone says, I'm looking to sell in a year, you immediately cut their time frame in half. Like, so you notate in your system. If they tell me 12 months, I'm making it 6 months. And I'm going to base my follow-ups around the power or the strength of that lead. So I think you go home and you've got to define, okay, lead comes into the system, here's my law around response time. Here's my law or structure around conversation or frequency of neighborhood, or how I'm going to categorize. And that's one cool thing about Command is it allows us to run really best practices, Josh, instead of what you like to say are unique practices, because we've all fit our business in these boxes up until today.
Yeah. So what I hear you guys saying is you guys have gone into your business and you've created programs, if you will, in my mind. We may call them smart plans, but we'll talk about that later. But you've had these programs, and these programs are, if they're a motivated buyer, they're going to put them on this plan. If we don't know yet, we're going to put them on this plan. If they're whatever they, and we have these like 5, 6, 10, whatever those plans are, you then train, educate, work with your teams on those scripts and those messaging, and then you just schedule the phone calls and you start running those plays based off their needs. Is that right?
100%.
So then, Aaron, come to you. How do you, as a team scales and grows, not everyone's created equal. As a rainmaker, how do you implement best practice there? How do you make sure that everyone's growing and that the rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting when you guys were talking yesterday about the platform of old, where it's basically multiple desegregated points of technology and using people to bridge those together.
Yes.
That's 100% what it looks like. We have a pipeline report that we get every week, and on Sunday, we have a virtual assistant that works on the weekend, and she goes in and she literally looks through people's pipelines and figures out, do all of their leads have a to-do set up? Do they have any past due leads? Are all of their leads categorized by the rules that we set up? And that's the only way right now for us to be able to go in and make sure that people are updating their pipelines, because they get busy, right?
Yeah.
And piggybacking off
doing real estate deals.
That's right, yeah, and piggyback off of what Nick was saying, that it's consistency of communication, not just speed to lead. You'd be shocked how many times we convert a lead maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks after they come in, and when we ask them why they chose to work with us, it wasn't my good looks or all the great things that we offered them in the conversation. Well, I know. But it was the fact that, hey, you are the only one that's still communicating with us. And we're not even talking 6 months, 12 months after that. We're talking a week or two in. So being able to have a way that we can make sure that those leads aren't falling through the cracks after they come in is one of the things that makes a big difference with conversion.
Well, and if I can add to that too, you know, there's people, right, who are creating these relationships in our organizations, or we are ourselves, and to also be able to track that information, not just where the client is, but also for us to see if, you know, we have a whole lot of potential business that's ending up in one spot that we're not being able to move forward in that pipeline, and to be able to dig in and really see what's going on there so that we can more actively engage. Maybe it's a matter of one of the conversations we're having, maybe it's a skill issue, you know, maybe it's a script.
Perfect. So we're going to do final questions, and we got to move on. So I'm going to start, Karina, we'll go back. One best practice that everyone should write down now that would help them grow their business.
One. Pick up the telephone. That's always one of my first ones. You know, actively engage, right? Like, we have such a really amazing opportunity right now to really dig into our contacts and really get back into relationships. And guys, I think don't be afraid, right, to do that. I took a class, I was talking to Brad Korn. I took a class with him. It was like my second year here at Keller Williams, and it was on getting re-engaged with the folks that are in your pipeline. And everybody, in fact, Brian, you guys taught us this the other day in class. Right now, on average, people are moving every 7 years or so. So everybody that you have contact information for, you can pretty much count that they're going to be moving in the next 5 to 10 years. And so get in front of them, get back in relationship, own it if you haven't talked to them for a while, but make the call and get back into that conversation.
And if I were to take that and merge it with what I heard earlier, you potentially go back and whatever CRM you're using, whatever system you're using, look for patterns that you're seeing based off of their journey to find unique ways to have new conversations.
Absolutely.
All right, Nick?
So I would say that, you know, we have a scorecard on our team so that everybody has a number of people in their pipeline, and then we want to see the exact number of smart plans set up for those number of contacts. Then we look at how many late reminders they have if they're not following the smart plan. And it's really that simple, and it comes out every single Monday. We discuss it in our coaching calls on Tuesday. But I would say if I was going to take the simplest layer, because everything is about layering that growth on there. If we start very simple, if everyone went home right now, picked up the smart plan of quarterly calls, everybody in your database that you've ever worked with, ever had a relationship with, you put them on the quarterly smart plan right now, and that's all you did. You didn't do any mailing, all the 36, 40 touches. If you just made your 4 phone calls a year, your entire business would change.
Yep. What Nick's alluding to, which not everyone knows, that inside Command right now, inside your database, you can go to any contact and with 2 button clicks, subscribe them to multiple smart plans that are already in your library. And one of those smart plans that's already programmed for you is a quarterly call. That Kelly and Command will notify you, hey, it's time to make this call. And then it'll track the call for you. So that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah, absolutely. And to start that, you go in tomorrow and you pick 5 people, you call them and you start their smart plan. And then the next day you pick 5 more people,
Yep.
you call them and you start their smart plan. And you just do that every day.
Yep.
Aaron?
Yeah, that's great. It's probably going to sound a little bit like a broken record, but it's just not rocket science. You enter people into a database, you have a set of rules that you follow that you make sure every lead follows up through, and I can't stress enough that you don't just put those people on an automated drip campaign. Just because they get an email from you doesn't mean they're going to transact business.
The one thing I'd add there is as you're putting these people in these plans, in the last process and talking to a bunch of agents like yourself, I think also things that people may miss, make sure you're tracking it. So who cares what your conversion rates and optimization rate is day one? Make sure you're measuring it and have a goal that every month you're going to get 1% better. Right? And so I think that's something that we can do as well to make sure that that holds us accountable to making sure that we're creating a better experience and that we're being more judicious and purposeful in those conversations that we're having.
And I think when you can add value in the conversation because you've taken notes and you know what you talked about on the last experience and you're not just doing a check-in call, those are the things that are going to separate you from the other agents that may or may not still be calling.
Right. No pressure, but end on a big one.
Well, I think it's a tie out a lot of what they said. If I go home, I think the one thing I need to change or need to start doing in my business, go on appointments. The era of, wait, are you sure you're wanting to sell? Or are you sure that your house is worth 400? I think it's worth, and trying to disqualify the appointment, I think it's got to stop. Because if we're not telling our story's being told for us, and we know right now that when someone's on your website, they're probably on 7 others at the same time. We've got to get out in front of people, belly to belly. The more intimate the interaction, the higher the rate of success. And for the agents on your team, or maybe for you, that say, well, I don't know if it's a good use of my time. Well, respectfully, if you're not selling homes, you've got time value of $0. So get in front of people and start telling your story and take every appointment. Really, like stop this. And I had to make this change with my team. We would disqualify. We had this checklist. We do all these things. And I'm like, why? Like, why don't we just get out there and start having conversation and build that moat around our business? Because with all the technology, with all the things going,
Build the moat.
we're still having relationships, we're still face to face. And I think that's really where we need to go.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thanks.